All right. I promised our return, and here we are. A couple of quick spots, and you're back in the free radio driver's seat. You know, the stuff that is going on, guys, in our country ought to scare the living daylights out of every single American. I was telling you in the last segment about this gun ban they did on the Undetectable Firearms Act. Well, guess what Chuck Schumer's already doing? He's already put forward a bill that would contain a provision that targets plastic guns made with 3D printing technology, and it would require that guns contain a piece of metal intrinsic to its operation, like a barrel or a trigger handle or some other method, so that there would have to be some metal in there that could be picked up by a metal detector. You see, they're scared because 3D printing means you can print a gun at home, and there's no way for them to track it. There's no ATF registration. There's no recording of it through a purchase, a 4473 form filled out. There's no way they can go to a manufacturer and say, hey, you got to keep serial numbers on these things so we can figure out who's got what. They're scared, ladies and gentlemen. And you know why? They're scared of you. Because they know they're acting unconstitutionally. They know they've betrayed you. They know that they've acted like Judas and they've sold you underfoot for 30 pieces of silver and lobbying money, re-election campaign funds. They've taken the money. They've already done the dirty work against you to keep in power, to keep in a luxurious lifestyle, to have power and ego and money and whatever. And the NSA is working very, very hard to make sure that you never have an opportunity to escape the system. News out this morning, a brand new bomb dropped by Snowden. This time it was done through the Washington Post. You know why? Well, the real reason why is because originally Snowden gave all this stuff to The Guardian in the UK, right? The Guardian newspaper, which, by the way, was a very small paper. I mean, it wasn't anywhere near what, the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post is. It's a very tiny paper. And they're very liberal, actually. But Snowden went to them, and they got so much heat from the UK government that, the other day, the publisher for the UK Guardian was dragged before a hearing in England, in the UK, and they're threatening him with charging him with terrorism and aiding and abetting terrorists for releasing the Snowden files. You've got to be kidding me. They're going to charge him with terrorism and the Guardian newspaper with terrorism. See, in England, they don't have freedom of the press. They don't have a First Amendment. They don't. So what happened was the Guardian shared this stuff with the New York Times and the Washington Post. And the reason they shared them with those groups is because they're both relatively liberal organizations. Not relatively. They're both far left. But I got to tell you something, America. I'm a constitutional conservative. But it's the Republicans who are throwing you under the bus on this NSA and this spying nonsense. They're the ones who are trying to keep track of you. Your people that you put into power, that you authorized, that you gave a power of attorney to act on your behalf, those are the ones that are selling you out. They're the ones that are betraying you. They're the ones that are voting in the NDAA and the NSA spying. They're the ones who gave the FBI authority to do domestically what the NSA is illegally barred from doing. I'm telling you, listen, stop with the party nonsense. I don't want to hear it anymore. The Republican Party is worse than the Democrat Party when it comes to this side of things. Stop thinking of a party as being your saving grace. You're a patriot. You're a constitutional conservative. That's it. You're not a Republican. You're not a Democrat. The truth is, your Republican Party is out there right now trying to pass immigration. Because if we don't pass immigration, we're never going to get the presidency back. You got to be kidding me. That's what Harry Reid and Chuck Schumer are telling you. If you believe that Republican Party, you're really stupid. Remember the old story of Brer Rabbit? Please don't throw me into that briar patch. Them thorns, they're going to hurt. So, of course, he gets thrown into the briar patch, which is exactly what he wanted in the first place. You see, look, the truth of the matter is, the entire congressional seat, everyone in it, everyone in the presidency and in his his executive staff, every member of his cabinet, every member of the senior judiciary in the United States, including all 9 Supreme Court justices and almost every federal judge, they're all operating outside the Constitution. They know it, they don't care, and they're not about to stop. They're not going to stop. And you know what? James Madison gave us the warning very early on. The very definition of tyranny is when all powers are gathered under one place. You know where they're all gathered? Under the federal government. Well, we have state governments that can help defend us. No, you can't, and I'll tell you why. They've coerced and co-opted your state governments by bribing them with money for highway funds, education money, welfare money, Medicare money, Medicaid money. They've bought your state governments. There is no saving for the American people except the American people. No one will be our advocate but us. Everyone else has an agenda. Everyone else has sold us out, betrayed us, cut our throat, and left us for dead. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the truth. And if you're a Republican out there and I'm ruffling your feathers, that's just too bad. You don't like the truth because it hurts, but it don't mean it's not the truth. You're maybe entitled to your opinion, but you're not entitled to your facts. And the fact of the matter is that the Republicans in this country are responsible for exactly what's going on with the NSA right now. They're the ones who are trying to keep this. They're the ones who are blocking the liberals from putting a halt to it. The Republicans are about to give us complete amnesty in concert with the Democrats. They both want it. The Republicans gave us the National Defense Authorization Act that allows Americans to be held indefinitely until the end of hostilities based on a belligerent act. Does that sound like a constitutional, freedom-loving, liberty-loving organization? I don't think so. You find me any constitutional authority for the detention of American citizens based on a belligerent act that can't even be defined. Define belligerent. Oh, well, that'll be left up to a court. Ah, that's right. The other corrupt division. Tell me it ain't corrupt. You got Obamacare approved by the Chief Justice, who was supposed to be a conservative. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are still buying into the party puke, you have been brainwashed. I strongly encourage you to take off the top of your head, pour some really, really strong hydrogen peroxide in there, slish it around for a little bit, and then pour it out. Maybe you'll get rid of all the germs and the poison that have been poured into your mind. Both parties in this country are deceiving us, robbing us of our rights, robbing us of all of our freedoms and liberties. And the truth of the matter is, they're after you, personally. 5 billion phones, 5 billion phone records a day are being captured by the NSA. Not just the metadata, but the call content. The president came right out and lied to us and said, and he'll say, well, I didn't lie. And here's how he gets around it. Well, we're not listening to your phone calls, he says. Okay. They're not listening. What they're doing is they capture that phone call. They capture the digital transmission of that phone call, and they do a speech-to-text conversion. That text now is readable, but you can't listen to it because it's text. They delete the audio portion. They keep the digital version of the electronic conversation. They scan it for keywords like bomb, like terrorist, like Muslim, like Muhammad, I don't know, whatever the heck they're looking for. So they're not listening. but they're reading it. I mean, guys, you couldn't get a more thinly veiled lie than that. Where's the press on this? Nobody knows. Where's the mainstream media? Nobody knows. They're too busy racing over to their email to find out what the government wants them to talk to us about next. You don't recognize the wholesale betrayal that you have by every division. The fourth estate is supposed to be whom? The press. They're supposed to keep you informed. They're supposed to educate you. They're supposed to be a watchdog over government because they have investigative resources that you don't have because you're too busy out there, cracking your knuckles to the bone trying to figure out how you're going to feed your family and pay your mortgage. But they've all betrayed us. The press has betrayed us. The executive is obviously operating so lawlessly that the guy from Cato Institute, and I talked about this in yesterday's show, came right out and said, when asked the question, what can we do about this president who continues to act in a lawless fashion? He said, listen, the Second Amendment, or not the Second Amendment, the American people have the right to overthrow their government. He said that in a congressional hearing. You see, the truth of the matter is, they fear you, but they've got you so intimidated you don't even recognize that you're an elephant standing up against a mouse. Well, I'm afraid to get into a database. They already have you in a database. Stop whining and start fighting. This article in the Washington Post says the records feed a vast database that stores information about the locations of at least hundreds of millions of devices. Now, they go on to say that the NSA does not target Americans' location by design, but the agency acquires a substantial amount of information on the whereabouts of domestic cell phones, quote, incidentally, by accident. Well, it's just it kind of gets vacuumed up. It's like we vacuumed up the trash on the floor, but while we were vacuuming, we also picked up the diamond ring. Well, guess what? I did a whole story the other day about how the FBI is domestically doing exactly what the NSA is doing globally. But the press isn't telling you about it. Congress isn't telling you about it. These Senate hearing committees and all of this nonsense, this is all kabuki theater for your benefit. They're all pretending they care. Not a single one of them does. Why? Well, the answer is pretty simple. They don't dare give up the power they have. And listen, guys much smarter than me who have, spent their entire lives being philosophers have made it very clear to us. There's no tyrant in power who will ever give up power voluntarily. It just doesn't happen. None. And these people are no different. They're in power, they're in authority. They live a very lavish lifestyle. What you don't know about your congressman that you think is so great, he's got a PAC. It's called the Political Action Committee. You know what a PAC is? It's a tax-exempt organization. And with it, they can avoid campaign finance law. People can throw money into that PAC, and they can get tax credits for it. Once that money is in that PAC, that representative, that Senate member, they can do whatever they want with that money. They're not restricted like they are on campaign finance to have re-election monies be tracked and monitored. On a re-election campaign, you're not allowed to spend the money for, you can't go get your car fixed with it. You can't go buy a new car. It's got to be used on your election, right? And you're not allowed to, go out and buy a nice, silk suit with it. So what they do is they use their PAC money to buy a brand new silk suit and to fund trips all around the world and fancy hotel stays. They're living like kings on your back. They're sucking you dry of tax revenue. They're stealing your rights away from you so quickly. There was a commercial on TV a while ago about a woman sitting there on a couch, and she's talking to her husband. And these people are coming in, and they're obviously robbing her house right around her. And it was, it was like something about, don't let the cable company draw you dry or something like that. And it was obvious that they were robbing her house. They were in black clothes with, ski masks on. And she's sitting there and she's holding, her phone to her ear and she's talking to her husband in a normal conversation, blah, 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 blah. And these people are picking up her furniture and running out the door with it. And at one point, she's holding something in her hand, and the thief walks over, and he puts his hand on it, and she lets it go, and he grabs that, and he runs back out the door with it. Don't you see what's happening? Everything that you own, everything that you thought you knew about what's going on around you politically is a lie. All of it is being subverted. All of it is being betrayed. This government is setting itself up to go to war against the American people. And what they passed yesterday, the House Republicans, these people you put into office thinking they were going to represent your interests. They're conservatives. No, they're not. The only thing they want to conserve is their seat in power. And they just approved the Undetectable Firearms Act, which bans you from owning a plastic gun. You could print it home. Not because they're worried about somebody getting on a train and shooting the... First of all, if it's a plastic gun, it can't fire more than one shot. And they're not worried about them going up there and killing the engineer of a train and derailing the train. They're not worried about them getting on a plane and shooting the stewardess. You know what they're worried about? They're worried about them going along a lineup of people kissing babies and shaking hands saying, vote for me, pow! The guy hidden in the crowd. Don't think so? Well, why would they pass something called the National Defense Authorization Act that states that they can hold any American indefinitely in detention without access to a lawyer, without access to the court system, based on a belligerent act? America, you've been sold out and you've been betrayed. And the truth of the matter is, you don't even know it. You were betrayed with a simple voice vote yesterday on this. Why did they do a voice vote? Because if they'd actually pushed the button and recorded the vote for senators, for Congressman so-and-so and Congressman from Illinois and the Congressman from Missouri and the Congressman from Indiana, it would have been a recorded vote. And then you'd know how your conservative voted. So they did it by a voice vote. You know why? Because it's not trackable. You know how often a voice vote happens? It's pretty rare. They didn't even debate it. So the fix was in long before they even brought the thing up to the floor. They're not worried about you. They're only worried about them. You know, you're the equivalent of a sheep. And the rancher, you know, he's got millions of sheep. Listen, once in a while, one or two get culled off by the wolves, or, you know, a bear comes in and eats one. It's the way it is, man. The coyotes get one once in a while. You know, you just can't help that. That's how they look at you. You're collateral damage. If you don't believe that, go listen to them. Their utter disdain for you is so obvious, it's dripping off of their teeth. They know best, and you don't. The truth is, this nation is beyond, and you've heard me use this phrase before, we are beyond political salvage. There is no way that you can try to elect people to put them in office that are going to unseat these people. I mean, look, I'm all for trying in 2014, but I got to tell you, I don't have any faith in it. What is going to have to happen is Americans are going to have to rise up and do a couple of different things. One, we have to take power from them. And one of the ways that we can do that is by the Convention of States. The Convention of States is the Article 5 methodology of modifying the Constitution without government and without Congress's approval. If 3/4 of the states approve of that constitutional change, then it becomes law. And Congress can't change it. And they can't repeal it. That's one method. The other method is the method I've been talking to you guys about for a long, long time. And that is the method of civil disobedience to take back America in a massive, peaceful civil disobedient action. It's going to be painful. It's going to be ugly. But I got to tell you, It's going to be painful and ugly no matter what happens. At this point, all you're doing as an American who's refusing to take action is you are holding off the inevitable. But the word inevitable should tell you everything that you need to know. This is inevitable. There is no way that we can restore this government back to some level. We live in a police state. This is a tyrannical police state right now. The press isn't telling you that. The media is not talking to you about it. They're covering for the politicians when they're supposed to be uncovering them. They're supposed to be exposing them, but they're not. Why? Why is it that the only place that you can find truth and the only place you can find real, true statements of what is really happening in our nation is in two places: on the internet and over the radio? I'm going to tell you why. You can find truth on the radio because there are 10,000 radio stations around the country, and most of them are owned by small corporations. One person, 3 people, 5 people, a family. Most radio stations are owned by families, and they run 1 or 2 or 3. And they're not subject to the same pressure that the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or Fox News is under, or Communist News Network. And so you can actually hear truth on talk radio. This station is a perfect example. The other place you can find it is on the internet. And they're working hard to cut that down by saying we can now license journalists. That's Schumer and Feinstein's latest thing. They want to say if you're going to be a journalist, you have to be employed by a legitimate news organization. What a crock that is. Hey, listen, even the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal started in somebody's garage. Sometime. So don't give me that bunk. If you're not employed full-time with a journalist source, who's then, of course, compromisable, right? Easily turned, all they got to do is threaten them with an audit. If you don't think that the IRS is being used as a weapon against you, I don't know what more you're waiting for. That guy who came out the other day, 4th stage cancer. His insurance company canceled them over Obamacare. And then they told him he was beyond salvage and they wouldn't renew his policy for a pre-existing condition because his pre-existing condition was beyond saving. Really. He went out and talked about it on the media, and the insurance company changed their mind, of course, real fast when the media went out and tried to talk to them. And what happened right after that? Well, they gave him his insurance back. And what happened right after that? Boom, the IRS audited him. Is it a coincidence? Not really. If you believe that, I invite you to listen to your own guy, Eisenhower, where he said, there is no such thing as, Roosevelt, I'm sorry, there is no such thing as coincidence in politics. Hey, I'm telling you, what you don't know is killing you. And what you don't know is really, dangerous stuff. You can't be oblivious to what's going on around you. You can pretend that politics don't interest you. But Pericles said it best. Just because you don't take an interest in politics doesn't mean politics doesn't take an interest in you. Everything these people do affects you. You are their food. You are their food supply. And you are their livestock. They want you to breed because that's how they make their money. They want you to consistently cough up milk or wool. They get to shear you a couple times a year. The only time they pay attention to you is right before elections. Have you ever noticed? And then right after the election, man, they're gone for at least another 2 or 6 years. You can't even communicate with them. They're all back in this NSA stuff. There's a few Democrats who are actually fighting against it, but the vast majority of the Republican conservatives couldn't give a rat's rear end whether or not they're monitoring everything you do or not. And if you think that this all won't come about to bring some kind of a new problem for you, you're mistaken. Just because the you don't think you have something to worry about doesn't mean you don't. They will use this against you. The question is how fast and to what extent. They're building dossiers on you for a reason. You don't build a dossier on somebody unless you plan to use it in a malevolent fashion. We're falling into tyranny, America. Wake up and smell the coffee. We're going to take a quick break. You can find us at americasvoicenow.org, facebook.com/Americas Voice Now, and youtube.com/Americas Voice Now. We'll be back in just a moment.